morning.
Hello.
Kelly and I are in Kingston, Ontario, doing 3 days workshop with some amazing teachers.
Oh, it's been great. I really enjoyed it. Today's day 3.
I know, they're the kindest people ever, seriously. So we're here to talk about, what have you been doing in your notebook? Look, we have matching notebooks, except mine is falling apart. Look at this, the whole thing is falling apart.
And if you go into Penny's pages, some of them belong in the Smithsonian.
Hardly.
I have stick figures in mine, so.
Everything is falling apart because it's the last few days and this one goes on the shelf. It's really, I have nothing left. So what have you been thinking about, writing about in your notebook?
So when you asked me that a few minutes ago, I opened up randomly to a page where I'm already brainstorming, ideas for 2019, 2020. I'm a month away from starting school, but it's always that process. So I've been thinking about, this idea that we've been talking about a lot, am I enabling my kids too much?
Yep.
And I don't know, there's a bunch of different things on here I'm thinking about. One of them, came from that Don Murray video that we watched. And he advocated weekly publishing, weekly writing groups. Quick write Monday, quick write Tuesday, quick write Wednesday, Thursday pick a piece, revise, Friday you're in a writing group. And I've done writing groups for years, but that's kind of gotten away from me a little bit. And so I need to rethink, because of course if that goes in, something else has to come out, right? And so I'm just thinking about that. And it also triggered a second thought, because we believe in a lot of low pressure, ungraded writing.
Yeah. So could all those be ungraded?
Yeah. What I'm thinking is that a lot of times my kids quick write for 10 minutes and they've written a page or 3/4 of a page. And his prompting there kind of made me think about, maybe I needed to devote a little bit more time from taking kids from here to here, that there's too much sort of initial first draft writing, and I haven't done enough time in my class in getting kids to go from 1 page of writing to 3 pages of writing, which really takes time and dedication of setting, that valuable time aside. So that's one of about 9 things on my list.
Can I just talk back to that for a minute?
Go ahead.
Before, because we do want to hear the rest of your list.
No,
but one of the things Tom Romano taught me, because he was one of Murray's closest friends, did one of the eulogies at his funeral, was the 1-pager. Mm-hmm. So it isn't that it's going to be 3 pages, but that you take initial thinking, and he had those kids turning him in every week. Mm-hmm. And it was very much Murray-like.
A 1-pager every week?
Yeah, I was in his course twice in the summer, and we had these things to do. And the amount of time I put into crafting, I couldn't go beyond 1 page in my mind. I can't go any farther. So that part was good, but it was also something provocative that you found in your reading that you wanted to go farther with, that I really, and as an adult, that was a great setting. And when I, this fall, started teaching this course at the college, one of the things I had them do was take, we were studying ghosts and hauntings, and we would take something like, what does forensic science say about the soul? You know how they weigh the body and when the soul leaves, it's half an ounce lighter. And the kids then wrote about, what is a soul? And just exploring that thinking over an entire page. But none of them were graded. They're all going portfolio. If you want to develop them, go farther.
Yeah, I really wasn't thinking in terms of grading. I was thinking more in terms of eliciting peer feedback, not peer editing, but peer response.
Right.
And sort of using that as an anchor to create a more interactive classroom amongst writers, rather than everybody kind of sitting in their own notebook trying to build, which is what I've always really liked about writing groups, is that it builds very, very small communities. And I'm really intrigued by your 1-pager, his 1-page idea. But I'm also kind of balancing that against, I think it was the National Commission on Writing said that almost half of students in American high schools graduate without having written a 3-page paper, And so somewhere in there, and of course we do the laps around narrative and the laps around.
Yeah, mine are writing 9, 10, 12-page papers, absolutely, during the semester.
Right.
But that activity was more to take the quick write longer.
Right.
And also to be completely free, my Writing 2 class at Kennett, which you were in one day during the project, they said that was their favorite thing, was that every other Friday, it totally on their own come up with a one-pager. So it had nothing to do with something we talked about or done in class.
Right.
And all of these kids were like, that's what I would be sitting in the cafeteria and I'd go, I got something to say about that. But they were like living like writers.
Right.
And these were kids who were choosing to take a writing course. So much more motivated. But I think there's something in there.
Yeah.
And I think that because I only see my kids twice a week, I might have to do it every other week because it was a struggle this last fall. But I also wonder, though, that the people watching might be thinking, like, how do we grade that? How do we, and what about the kid who can only do half a page? And I sometimes think our whatabouts get in the way of really good thinking. Yeah. And it's like, I want to launch in and go, let me give it a shot.
Well, and you model and you model and you model and you show student models. And, that kid is only writing this much in September. If you stick with it, that kid's going to be writing this much.
Absolutely.
In March. So what are you thinking about in your notebook?
We wanted more of your list. Okay, so at Booth Bay, Linda Reef read a poem called Echolocation, which is about how whales communicate. And we were quick writing, and I immediately saw my family, all the family I've lost, on the beach like whales spread out across the sand. This is draft 5. I'm only going to read you a little bit of it. They lay like a great sadness, the shape stretched across the sand. This family of mine in dawn's dim light, beside the advance of the waves. My mom nestles into hers, a woman absent for 50 years. She breathes her wishes and losses into her mama's ears. And there's my brother curled into a ball in my father's arms, a fragile infant with fine dark hair. What is your name, oh baby son? Daddy holds him once more in the breeze of morning, holds him. And then I just went into my grandfather, and what I'm trying, and I've decided now that it's not a poem, it's actually going to be an essay. I just don't know what I'm doing with it. But at any rate, what I love is like,
I love it. What was that one line about absent for 50 years?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's so good.
Yeah. So what I like is that, if you were going to go back, draft 4 is like 8 pages back because all kinds of stuff gets in the way. Right. And then I come back to it again and start rewriting it. So that's what I've been thinking about.
A little bit, and then it kind of enters your consciousness again.
Life
you to come back, right?
Screams inside. Got to figure out how many libraries we gave away and where. That stuff, it just all gets in.
Yeah. I don't know. There's not a whole, there's a few other things on my list, but a lot of it is kind of, I'm already in the collecting artifacts stage that's going to prompt argumentation or that's going to prompt narrative. And, you and I have both banked a number of them. Yeah. But, you come across a poem, a whale poem, which I've never heard before. And, I think what's really kind of cool about our partnership is that, I hear so many new things from you all the time, and you and I are on the road and we're out listening to.
Oh my word, I write down Kelly things all the time in here. I do.
Yeah, and so.
And then I see them tweeted by other people, like attributed to other people, and I was like, no, Kelly said that. But I don't know who said it first. I don't know.
Well, that brings us back to Don Murray, because when I think of Don Murray, when you had sent me a video of Don Murray giving a speech in 1985.
I know.
In Iowa, and it was about an hour long, and I watched it, and I
got 5 pages of notes on that.
Look at this, so do I. I have a ton.
Look, you got to show them that. This is Don Murray, in case you don't remember. And Tom Newkirk and Lisa Miller edited an essential collection of his work, which is phenomenal.
But what I want, it kind of tied to what you said, because, no, Kelly said that, but I can't tell you how many times in listening to Don Murray speak that I've either consciously or unconsciously used almost his exact language. So somewhere I've read it, or somewhere I've heard it, and somewhere I've internalized it. It's fascinating to hear this thinking spring from 1985.
Well, I do that. When I wrote Right Beside Them, I said, I thought of nothing new here. Everything I'm doing was already said. Right. That's what I felt as I listened to this speech, was like, oh yeah. Listen to this. When we first write, we try to tell people how to feel. You can't show what you notice and let them feel. I've said that so many times to kids, to others, but when you're listening to it, I was in my second year of teaching in 1985, and I was like, where were you? I was at Hilda Lottie Elementary in Oregon, watching the deer on the lawn with my fifth graders, and I thought, oh my gosh, you know, here he was at the Iowa Council of Teachers of English, and the speech opens with 3 conferences. You remember with the director of the National Writing Project. And what I found so fascinating was the way, this is one of the things he said about his conferences. My preparation for conferences was my own writing this morning and other mornings. I concentrate on him, the student, and the text in that order.
Yeah, I think that's a big theme that just resonates through that entire keynote, is this idea of being responsive to the kid. You know, we talked about being responsive, that you teach kids first. You don't teach stuff first, right? And so if you have kids who haven't been reading in 5 years, high school kids, to start with the very difficult core text that somebody who's very far away from your classroom has determined that's the best move to start the year for your kids is ridiculous. So the person who has written that has never met my kids. So I just marked passage after passage. I teach my students what they know. The students know the subject more than I do. I love this one. I don't pay attention to the text. I pay a lot of attention to what the writer says about the text.
Ooh, that one is good.
And I respond.
Will you put something there so I can go back and steal that from you?
I respond to what the writer says. And to me, there's a whole kind of big idea here that it's about giving kids agency. It's about giving kids voice, and actually inviting or almost requiring them to do a lot of the wrestling themselves. You and I have been talking about this on the road a little bit, that we believe there's been sort of this, I think there's been a real sort of unhealthy codependence that's built between young writers and teachers.
Helicopter teaching.
Right. And so the teacher needs to let go a little bit.
Look at this from Murray, that same speech. The student must discover he can solve his own writing problems.
Yes.
It's all there in that statement.
And one way you have them do that, he said, you should ask students to help solve a problem in your writing.
Exactly.
So here's a problem I have in my writing kids. What should I do? And so that you put the problem solving out on the table instead of the kid who says, well, I don't know what to do. What should I do? Tell me what to do. Right? But you start to build that culture immediately of the kids, actively getting involved in the wrestling match.
Well, I was taking Tom Newkirk's class, Misreading Masculinity at UNH. The summer I was writing right beside them, and Don Murray walked in to bring me to lunch, and I thought, I know what I need to ask him. And when we sat down, I said, what does a writing teacher need? Like resources. What are the most important resources? You know what he said? You need a ream of paper. And I said, what? And he goes, the only thing you need to teach is the writing that they're doing. I was like, that was, how many years ago? But I was like, imagine the master doing that. I need mentor texts because I don't know enough. And I don't, he was a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist. His brain was more full. But listen to this.
He did say though at one time that his favorite response was,
Yeah, exactly like Tommy Moore.
But then he kind of segued into that once there's a relationship established with the kid, he might even say things like, do you mind if I mess around with your paper a little bit? Or I wonder what would happen if you tried X.
Which is exactly the way we talk with kids.
Yeah.
Listen to this. The responsibility of a teacher, he started making a list, is to write, number 1. We know that, but I'm wondering how many people that watch this write. Like, give yourself the indulgence of 15 minutes. I didn't write today.
And I think it's true for both kids and for teachers.
Yes.
That he said that when you begin writing, these are his words, not mine, you have to lower your standards until you take off. Right?
He's quoting William Stafford, the poet.
He there?
He is. You lower your standards until you can write. Yeah.
Until you take off, and outrun that doubt.
Absolutely.
In your head that you suck,
God.
Right?
Okay, so one more thing he says is our responsibility, a climate where exploration and experimentation is irresistible. Do we create that in classrooms? We do not create an irresistible climate.
It sort of echoes or Atwell sort of echoes that. And she says, two things have to happen for kids to become better writers. Number one, they have to write a lot. Number two, there has to be room and encouragement for experimentation to come into play. But if the teacher collects everything, reads everything, grades everything, what happens to your willingness to experiment, to take risks?
Disappears.
All of that, right?
Well, and think about this. In here, I would say 90% of this sucks.
Yeah.
It's bad writing, but that's why people don't write. You don't want to sit down and write something crappy. I'm going to write something crappy, guaranteed. And listen to this quote from Danny Shapiro. Under the guise of being helpful or honest, my censor, our internal censors, is like a guided missile aimed at every nook and cranny where I am at my weakest and most vulnerable. It's exactly what happens.
Which ties to Newkirk's embarrassment. You know, how do we create? A lot of kids dial out as readers and writers because they are trying to avoid the embarrassment that is created when teachers unwittingly put in structures that do not support. And I think the last thing I would say about, you know, watching the Murray thing is that all of the responsiveness, all of it is really, really, really about getting to know the kid and really listening to the kid. Deal with the human aspect before you deal with the semicolon. You know, what a quote.
What?
You know, and that you build that relationship and that shoulder to shoulder work with kids before, you know, but that's kind of a prerequisite to getting kids to take the leap that we're asking them to take.
That's such a great way to end, which we have to because our ride is probably out front. We are set to start at 9 o'clock.
We're doing all day workshop now.
That's right. Thanks, you guys.
Bye, take care.